It's just another bad day, dark feelings are back, assaulting your heart with a panic attack. There ain't no shame in feeling depressed.
My name's Mark Hudson, and you're listening to the ANDYSMANCLUB podcast.
Welcome to the second episode of the ANDYSMANCLUB podcast. The aim of the ANDYSMANCLUB podcast is to give real and raw accounts of real normal blokes and show that you are not alone, as cliched as that saying may be. Really privileged today to have two amazing guests. I'm going to start by introducing one of our ANDYSMANCLUB facilitators, Neil Wayne. Over to you, Neil.
Hi, morning, guys. Thanks for having me on. Absolute pleasure to be here, and obviously banging a drum for ANDYSMANCLUB. I facilitate the Huddersfield group that's gone from strength to strength over last year, and with the help that I have from Huddersfield Town this season, it's probably quite fitting that today's next guest is one of the first team coaches at Town, Mark Hudson.
Hiya. Hi, guys.
Morning, Mark.
Morning, and thanks for having me on.
It's an honour, mate. Mark, I'm relatively new to football. I don't have too much knowledge on it. I've seen the amazing work that Huddersfield Town have done for us, but I thought it'd be good for those people like me who are a bit naive to football, don't really have an understanding. Just give a bit of an intro about you and your background with football and sports.
I grew up playing football. It's all pretty much what I wanted to do as a young kid. Came through, I think, about 18 years, roughly, of professional football. And then a sort of smooth transition into coaching, really. And that was testament to Huddersfield for doing that for me. They obviously saw something in me that they'd want to keep on board and sort of keep me going through the ranks and help me learn to be a coach. And I'm still there now.
What levels of football did you end up playing at?
So I played my first professional football was on loan, which was at Oldham, and that was from Fulham. I came from Fulham on loan, went there for 3 months. Was a great experience, to be honest, moving away from home, moving part of the country, living with another player who became really close with, had a great time there. Ian Dowie was the manager. He left at Christmas and went to manage Crystal Palace, and after that I went back to Fulham, and then he took me to Crystal Palace. So that was in the Championship, and then that season we funnily enough got promoted to the Premier League through the playoffs. So and then I got bought by Crystal Palace, spent just under 5 years there, had a year at Charlton in the Championship, and then signed for Cardiff, which had 5.5 years there in the Championship, and then got promoted to the Premier League from there as well. So, and then to Huddersfield, and I think I'm in my 6th to 7th year there now.
Quality.
Yep, 7th, I think.
Yeah. Neil, you told me something interesting. We don't often discuss guests, but you told me something interesting about what you liked about Mark, and it were about leadership, wasn't it?
You could see from when Mark first joined, it was quite a tough period at the football club, I think, on the pitch, and it really needed leaders at that time. You could tell straight away that Mark was going to be one of those for the club, and I think the fact that he got made captain and led the team, and obviously again successfully to promotion to the Premier League again, and led that from the top, from the front, a leader of men, and obviously you two being in professional sport like you are, you do look up to those leaders, even just amateur sport. You're always looking at your captain for that guidance and that support and that advice. And I think somebody like Mark coming in, brilliant for the younger lads and also the experienced lads as well, to see how it should be done properly. And I think obviously that's led on to you going into a coaching career as well, which obviously stood you in good stead on that front.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was I think for me, it was coming in. When I joined, I didn't ask to be captain or anything like that. I think a lot of people have seen that in me. It's not something I've ever asked to be, but I sort of I enjoy the role, of course. I enjoy the coaching role now, but I definitely enjoyed being captain at previous clubs. It's something that I found proud, and I had pride in it, and something to look back on and think, yeah, it was I think it was five times I've been captain at 5 different clubs, so it's something to be proud of for sure.
That's definitely a test. Go on, Neil. Sorry.
No, go on, fire away.
I would say that's clearly then a testament of your standards as a bloke in it. What would you say? Because you'll know deep down what drives you and what drove you. Do you think to that point where they saw something in you to lead? What would you say that your key factors there are? Your focuses.
I wouldn't say one thing was overriding out of all the sort of characteristics that come with maybe leaders. I thought I got on well with everyone in the squad, or I tried to. Not to say that there weren't times where you didn't see eye to eye with certain players or maybe coaches, but I think I was honest with it. I think I always tried to sort of help squads blend and have a relationship between players as a group and staff members. I think that sort of balance of having a relationship between the two always helps. Always tried to help people if they needed help or give advice, and that was off the pitch really. I know I was vocal on it, but a lot of the stuff that I think leaders do well is a lot of the stuff you don't see, and that's probably what I think is what makes me proudest, is that I've always tried to help people. That maybe it could be the smallest thing, just a bit of advice, even just the time to sit with someone and absorb what their problems are maybe.
Within your career, Mark, have you sort of looked up to certain people from obviously starting out as a young trainee and seen captains and managers at other clubs and thought that that's where you want to get to, where you want to be, and little snippets that you maybe picked off them to use yourself?
Yeah, I think when I was coming through at Fulham, I had quite a lot of high-profile leaders. Really, I think Chris Coleman was one. Looked up to him. Lee Clark wore the armband. I looked up to him. And Andy Melville was another one. Just sort of, I know two of them are in centre-half positions, but every time I've come into sort of a club, I had Tony Popovic when I was at Crystal Palace coming through. I played next to him. He was the captain at the time. And it was more the sort of the time that they spent of trying to help you learn, and as well as obviously they want to do well, so they want, say, their partner next to them or who they're playing with to succeed so they can succeed. I think that's always in sport, that it's about success, isn't it? I think, but they always spent time with staff members. They interacted well with fans. They always took the time to maybe look down and look at the youth team coming through and spend some time with them and make them feel valued.
I think as speaking as a fan, I think obviously I've followed Town for 40 years. Just said that out loud, didn't I? I don't look that old, do I really? But yeah, following your local team, I think if you do get somebody within there who does have that interaction with fans, as a fan who has been on through turnstiles as a young kid, you crave that, and that's what makes supporting that club special. And when you can get an attachment to players who clearly care and clearly go that extra mile to care, that's valuable. And obviously that's been very evident with you from the minute you walk through the door. So that's something as a fan that you're proud of.
Thank you. It's something that you try. It's something you try to do. I don't think it's something that necessarily happens overnight, and it depends on the person. I think sometimes these relationships take longer, especially within the club as well, because sometimes certain staff members, for instance, you don't come across day to day, and those relationships take time to build.
I think what you said beautifully for me, and what I see in the best of leaders is what you just said about creating other leaders. I think here within Andy's Man Club, people would often see, being the face of it, that was me, where I've always looked at it as that Andy G, who's on here now, Neil's the leader of Huddersfield with his other team there. It's about creating other leaders and just driving standards so that, as you said there, you don't have to be on at people every single day, because ultimately if you set a certain standard for your group, whether it be in sport, out of sport, it drives itself. And the other thing, what I loved was, it's not always about the task at hand. So we've had a guy who Neil might talk about later who's had a bit of a rocky time lately, and another leader of that group has gone and swooped that lad up, took him home and self-isolated him and really looking after him. And That's what a proper true leader is, isn't it? It's not just the one who's getting the plaudits; it's the ones who's in the trenches as well, digging the shit with the boys.
Yeah, I think
Absolutely.
for me that is probably what stands out. Maybe good leaders from leaders. I think someone that can maybe stand behind and not have the praise. I feel definitely that I've been one of those types of players that maybe didn't get praise on the pitch because of the way I played, I knew. I wasn't fancy on the eye. I never thought that I would get high praise just because of the type of player I was, but I was happy to help other players and people succeed in their roles and watch them go. And that's what sort of made me proud, I think, is watching people grow and have the careers that they did, or and enjoy doing it as well. And it's when they come to you after and say, you know what you did for me was unbelievable, but that's something that other people maybe don't see. And as long as you're happy to take that, and maybe not get that surrounding praise, maybe media or fans or stuff like that, then that separates I think the top leaders from maybe sort of your general leadership.
Definitely.
So,
Did you play with player Michael Collins?
I know of Michael Collins, yeah. I didn't play with him, but I know of him, yeah.
Just when you said you were there 6 years, I couldn't remember. He's a good pal of mine. I didn't know how long ago he'd left, and I just thought
time just flies by there, doesn't it?
Like that. And we've chatted sometimes about that transition from playing pro football, because obviously rugby is I played rugby, and it's a very small piece. You know, it's not the pressure cooker that football is. And he talks about that transition, and every transition plays a big part. But Neil, I know we've had a little brief chat about this, about Mark's public story. And I thought it'd lead on nicely, because what we've painted a picture of here without even trying is a leader of men, you know, does it for the right reasons, a professional footballer who, you know, what most people would say has got the world at his feet. He's got everything going for him. He's now transitioning to coaching. But a year or so ago, you hit a bit of a tough patch, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I think my story is, well, my family story really. It was when I joined Cardiff. It was a tough time, really. A first time of moving away from sort of our hub, our home, which was London, and the move came about, which was a sort of a great move, but it seemed like miles away, which is only really 2 and a bit hours, but it seemed like moving to the other side of the world. That's what it felt like at the time. And on that, when we went to sign, took my wife, we went together, signed the contracts that day, and then driving home, you pass Guildford to go to London. So it was quite late. We decided it was probably too late to go and pop in and see everyone in Guildford and sort of tell them the news. So we decided to go back to London, back to home to pack up. And then my wife got a phone call in the morning from her mum, telling us that her sister had killed herself.
No.
It's just one of those. I mean, you've had the similar scenario, Luke, and from obviously you two could probably relate very much on what's happened there with obviously brother-in-law, sister-in-law. When you heard that news, Mark, obviously it's some of the toughest news anybody's going to hear, and all of a sudden, can you grieve properly? Probably not, because you've got to look after your wife and her family, etc. And obviously that's clearly had an impact. Can you tell us a bit about obviously the aftermath of that and where you went from there?
It's probably a really tough time. We ended up signing. We had to pack up home, and with obviously all the grieving going on, and the emotional state of the family and the disrupt and pain, she wanted to come with me. So we moved to Cardiff. We lived in a hotel, and we ended up living in a hotel, I think, for 3 months. I think at the time she didn't leave the hotel maybe for 2 months of that. Couldn't deal with seeing people, socializing, it was her sister at the end of the day. It was her best friend. So it was a really tough time. I had to still go to work. No one knew when I joined Cardiff that had happened. Only the manager knew. He did offer me help, but at the end of the day, they just signed a player that spent quite a bit of money on, and they needed to get results. So it was that's no dig at the manager. That's just if I needed anything, I could go to him, but sort of crack on with your work. And I found it, to be honest, I look back on that year and I found it really, really tough. I know my form was poor as well, but without actually going, this is what's happening to me, and trying to, what I thought at the time would make it look like an excuse, I sort of kept it to myself, really.
So from what you've said there, I mean, did football become a positive distraction anywhere there, or was it a completely sort of flat experience at the start?
At the start, it was just, I felt like it was a complete sort of daze, really. I didn't feel confident in, which I should have been. Should have been a great thing to go there and sign and try and then mingle in with the like, it's like you normally do at any sort of walk of life. Something new, you want to meet people, you want to sort of bond with people, you want to get in and around, you want to make things happen, and enjoy it while you're doing it. And it just felt like a complete blur at the beginning, and then come back and then obviously try and then pick up the wife from an emotional state which she wasn't in a good place, really. So it was a tough time. I did find going to work every now and then a bit of a release, but it wasn't to be any sort of benefit, really. It didn't feel like I was doing my job properly.
Mark, did you? And this is probably something, and I've not really related to anyone else on this before. I think it's hard when you. It's not harder than anything what I'm on about. It's hard when it's a brother or sister-in-law, because you are as affected as, you know, you're in the family, you're part of the family, you feel that loss like they do. But then the outside world, so because I played rugby at the time, well, they're looking at, well, it's your brother-in-law, it's not your brother, it's not your sister, and people expect you just to sort of get on with it. And to you, you've still got that. You're coming home to, you know, you're doing that stressful job, but then you're coming home, you try to still pay the bills and keep your form up and all that other stuff that you already had pressure before. But then you're also going home and you try to be the loving husband, the loving partner, try to be empathetic, and then you seem to just getting pulled in every direction. And people just, I just find it really weird. And I'm not saying it's harder at all than losing your own sibling or anything like that. I just find it a very weird situation to be in, because I don't know if people give it the same, I don't say credibility, but do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't think you can compare it for one being worse than the other. I think when you marry someone, you marry into the family, don't you? Yes. I think that's part of it.
I mean, like the outside perspective of it, you know.
Yeah.
I remember first going in, and one of the rugby lads' opinion was this were one of the rugby lads' opinion. The first day I've gone back to training, he died on the Tuesday. I had the Tuesday off. I went back on the Thursday, and one of the rugby lads' first thing were, "Oh, you know, I feel real bad for you, but it's a selfish thing to do, isn't it?" And I was like,
"Yeah,
what thing do you think gives you the right to be able to say something like that straight away?" And the stigmas obviously are big, and I don't know how you found it being in a football environment. I don't know if it's similar to a rugby environment with like them type of comments.
I think I can only speak from probably my own experience, and I think you do, over a period of time, you start to think about obviously suicide, and think you think about it in obviously a not a good way, and then you start to think, well, why, and such. There's no answer to it. People do say it's obviously selfish. What they leave behind is a mess. They leave broken families, broken human beings. And it's not to say that they didn't think about that. And that's why the word selfish is used, I think. But it's what's going on with them at that current time. I think I've thought about it a lot over the time, and I've sometimes thought, how could she be so selfish and do that to her family and friends? But then you think about the other side of it, what she was going through to be able to do that.
I think
we come across it quite a lot, don't we? with Andy's Man Club, we come across this a lot with obviously guys who try to take their life, and obviously people, we all know somebody who has taken their life. And I think if you're at the point where that's your best option, you can't reason with that, can you? You can't find any sort of rhyme or reason in the fact that that is somebody's best option.
I don't think you'll ever understand, unless they've been through it, what that actual mindset is at the time. Unless you've been in that situation, no one can ever understand what are those thoughts that are going through in that individual's mind.
How long did you bottle it up for? How long did you sort of keep it suppressed before
we tried to deal with it that season. We tried to speak to someone, which didn't feel right. My wife, tried, and to be honest, she's only dealt with it probably the last year, and then we're looking at 10 years ago. So it's still situations where she, for instance, we've got a home phone that's got voice recordings on it, or if you're looking at on a computer with some video footage of back in 10 years plus, she finds it very, very difficult to look back, and with any kind of fond memories, I think it's really painful. I think we've tried to visit through the years to speak to people about it. I've found probably talking about it more than she has, and I don't know whether that's because I'm, like you said, a brother-in-law, that I found it easier to talk about bit by bit, and the more I did, the more I felt better for it. But every time my wife's talked about it, it really sort of brings up every emotion that maybe she went through at the time.
I think you've just led on to something really good, and this is a man's page, as they call it, but they've got a lot of women followers who back us, and I think there's a big stigma at times that women meet up, have a glass of wine, talk about how they feel, and I'm finding the more I work with men and women, that sometimes those men, at times do find it a little bit easier. There's always this stigma that men don't talk, but sometimes those men, when we do start to talk, we do feel a bit easier. Where some women, my partner's exactly the same. I probably won't be able to have a full conversation about that with her, about her little brother. And it's just weird hearing it from you, because, both sportsmen, you'd think that we'd find it tougher speaking about something like that as blokes and how we feel about it than our partners. But she's very much the same, exactly the same as your partner by the sounds of it. Would find it very uncomfortable, and because she finds it uncomfortable, would choose just not to talk about it.
Yeah.
And then that bottle up, and then maybe comes out in different ways, and that's I find that fascinating, very fascinating. And I think
from my point of view, I think when you're talking about stuff like this and how hard and painful it is, I think talking amongst your friends maybe doesn't seem like an option, because when you're with your mates, and my group of mates, say for instance, are the ones I grew up with, it's not that they're not there for you, but you sometimes feel that, do they want to see me break down and like really unravel and then share all those feelings with them? And I know they would. I think maybe I think it's an age thing as well. The older I've got, the more that they've been like, what you went through is like so tough, and you did try and talk about it. And I think the younger you are, it's so hard for them to feel maybe that sort of connection to what they're going through, because you don't really understand your own emotions maybe that when you're a bit younger.
And it's that lad culture in it, that all, lads want to have banter and, look cool and not feel embarrassed about stuff and giving on out to have banter with, where, like you say, most people could sit and the mates would listen, but it's that stigma we create as blokes. And as I said a minute ago, not just blokes, women have those same sort of stigmas as well, don't they?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, I understand that. It's so difficult to talk about, and finding the right people to talk about it with. I think it's like we talked about friends, and I've spoke to people outside of work about it, and probably the person I spoke to most was a sports psychologist, actually, a guy called John Marzette. He works for the football club, and just having a time with him and him maybe asking the right questions and having that relationship with them that you feel comfortable to tell them, definitely helped me.
Were there anything in particular, Mark, when obviously when all this is going on, was there anything that you used as a particular coping strategy, or did you just sort of get lost behind it all? You know, did you go for walks? Did you use music, things like that?
I think the older I've got, the more I understand probably myself. I think at the time when it was going through, like, I don't know if you heard, but when I went through, probably my worst bit was I couldn't go to hairdressers. I felt really uncomfortable with having, like, you know, the cover you have put on, and in that situation where it's sort of focused on you, and I just think sort of clammy hands, and I didn't know that at the time, and I've obviously looked back at that, and I think that was definitely a sign of I was struggling. I didn't like situations where I didn't know people. If I knew them, I felt okay, but if I didn't know what I was going into, and there was quite a few people there, I felt very uncomfortable with it.
Which is
how did you find that, Luke, when Andy died? That same situation. What did you use to cope? And
I think for me, it were building this, like, literally 4 days. It were like after I, like, because own struggles, being a bloke, not really talking, letting drink get in the way, the negative coping strategies that guys think work, what I thought, would let take over. It were about trying to just utilise it as a positive, and I found it most uncomfortable at rugby. Talking about it, because lads are just still cracking on playing and having a good. And up until that point, I had my best season. And Andy died, and it just sort of like lost that form, lost that probably spark, because you've got so much going on in your personal life that it's difficult. So probably initially it would just try to get that focus on trying to help another person, another human being. But it wasn't easy. Like Mark's saying there, it's just it's a weird place to be. It's just a weird place to be, because even some of my own family, my side of family, they probably didn't get it. I think with a lot of things, until you're affected by something personally, you don't understand it, dear. And when you don't understand something, you've got no emotion to it. Myself included, I would have never really cared or known about suicide before this. Not that I wouldn't have cared about another human being, I just didn't know about it. So I would never have known dying by it. I would have not known about it. I'd have been blasé about it, probably similar to rugby lads, or it's selfish, or that type of mentality. And then when it hits you, and then you do ask all those questions, like what Mark said, you laid there on a night going through every scenario in your head of, like, why have they left, my partner? Why have they done this to my mother and father-in-law, and all these type of stuff? And then you start to understand, like, where must someone be? But then on the flip side, and for anyone who's listening, however you're feeling right now, like by tomorrow, the day after, a week, 1 year from now, it changes. The amount of people I've spoke to who've said that they've attempted to take their life, and it just didn't happen for whatever reason. They got saved, and they'd be devastated now looking back if that would have been the case. And I think, in memory of Mark's sister-in-law and Andy and everyone else who ended up being successful in terms of suicide, I think that's what we're all trying to do now, is prevent and give hope to other people. That's what I think these podcasts and this type of stuff's about. And I think what would be really nice is to take Mark through an Andy's Man Club. I don't know what you think, Neil.
Without a doubt. I think we should do that, and I've got an Andy's Man Club ball already.
I think you should facilitate.
I can do that. That's no problem whatsoever.
Man.
So
yeah, I'm up for that.
Yeah, give me a little taste of what we're about. I haven't got an Andy's Man Club ball, but I've got loads of teddies.
Oh, nice.
And these, I do have kids, by the way. These aren't
plenty teddies.
I think I'll use this guy.
Yeah, so
a bit more macho.
Yeah, I think this is useful for people who don't really know what Andy's Man Club is, apart from all the black and white stuff they see all over Twitter and Facebook and what have you. And it's for blokes. So doing things like this is a good little insight for people, men and women, to see what we do actually do. And what we actually do is very, very simple, but off the scale effective. So there's just a few things that I will run through before we start, if we're going to do it properly. We don't talk about religion, politics, or medication. Religion and politics probably the two most divisive subjects on the planet, especially in the current climate. And medication, obviously, we're not medical professionals, so we can't advise you on that. We just advise you to go to your GP in that scenario. And we'll start as we always start. Obviously, when we get the ball, we introduce ourselves. So, anybody watching, I'm Neil. And the first question is always, how's your week been? And I'll be honest, my week's been probably one of the most bizarre, strange, surreal, horrible, but then good weeks I've ever had. That's just a brief intro, and I'll tell you a bit more about that on my positive. On the get off your chest. So obviously, co-facilitator the room, Luke. I'll pass it over to you. How's your week been?
Get that ball, mate. There it is.
Yeah.
Got it here. He's morphed into a wrestler. I've had an up and down week. You know, I'm always very positive in these how's your week been, because I think, you know, if we judge his week by one bad hour or one bad day, you know, we can feel bad about it. But I think it's been a bit of this third week, and I'm seeing it trends on a lot of people. It's been a bit of a transition. You know, first 2 weeks, I think people were enjoying this break and this stuff at home. And third week, that pressure cooker comes, doesn't it? You know, and little boy had a bit of a meltdown that he wanted to go back to school, and he were finding it hard at home, and routines are a little bit out the window because it's school message saying it's actually Easter holidays, so let them have a week off, which just fruit routine out. Me and Mrs. were up and down. Just with that same routine in kids and babies. So, but all that together squashed in. So that we've been together 3 weeks and we don't spend that much this amount of time together. I think it's been pretty positive, actually, to only have one little blip here and there. And overall, in terms of how's the week been, very, very good, very good. Simplifying things, and I'm enjoying that simple life. Over to you, Mark.
Excellent.
So take the ball then. I've got my imaginary ball.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, my week's been very similar probably to you two. It's been up and down. It is, I think we're going into probably our third to fourth week, maybe third week of being together consistently. And I think that's something that's never happened for us as a family. Not forced upon anyway. We spent quite a lot of time together, but not something where you can't escape, pop out in the car, go and do your shopping at ease, or whether it's going to work. So yeah, we're right in each other's eye line pretty much 24/7. I've got 3 kids, 9, 6, and just under 2. Right mix of ages. So I found that interesting. Homeschooling as well. That's been testing, but we've come away from that this week. Found out that the more time you spend with, especially the toddler, that their speech is coming on.
Yes.
And the boy, he started to ride his bike freely, with no stabilizers or anything like that. He's banging to his football. They want your attention 24/7 as well. Sometimes that's not possible. And yeah, my mood's been a bit up and down. I think being in my wife together this much with that stress of 3 kids is been a bit touchy. Short fuse every now and then, probably more me. But yeah, no, we've only had the odd blip, which, considering the situation, isn't too bad.
Spot on. I think just before I go on to question 2, I think obviously I've got you two on the screen side by side here, and the similarities from the professional sport to the in-law suicide to the situation at home now with 3 kids of similar age, listening to that. The similarities are uncanny, to be fair. It's actually really fascinating to be on the other side of this.
I was exactly the same then, just thinking, and I'm so glad that the other people listening who are also now happy that they are not alone in the fact that they've argued with their missus. They've got 3 kids like we both have. I'm 10, 6, or going 6 next week, and a 16, 17-month-old who, like you've just said, speech is getting better, but he's up from 6 a.m. and very rarely likes to nap. And it's just every single second of your day, other than this, which is great because you're timing it at 11 o'clock when she's having a nap, which she'll be causing havoc in about 10 minutes. It's just brilliant just to know that I'm not a bad dad. I'm not a bad bloke just because, you know, that pressure cooker of being in your house constantly when you're used to being out and doing stuff. I think other people will just be like me now, just going, I'm glad it's not just me.
Yeah, no, I
absolutely
agree. To be fair, I spoke to a couple of the lads that I know quite well, and with their kids and stuff like that. And I think when we had 2, you can have 1 each. I think when the third one comes along and you realise that you're trying to homeschool with a 9 and a 6-year-old, they want your attention, but then this little one comes up underneath you and you're like,
yes.
Exactly
that.
Brilliant. Love it. Two very similar stories. So moving on to question 2, a positive from your week. Luke sort of touched on this with mine earlier on, and it's the fact that a situation that happened within the Huddersfield group, or within people involved in the Huddersfield group, has seen one of the facilitators at Huddersfield really sort of come to the fore in his usual understated manner and really take another guy into his family, literally into his family. In the current climate, he's moved him in, he's looking after him, he's supported him, and that's been my highlight. It's been absolutely amazing to see, and I'll tell you a bit more about that situation on question 3. So that's mine. So Luke, positive from your week, please.
2. One would be I've lost a stone this week just by training again. I've got back training, and that's really helping the physical, mental side. It's something I've been wanting to do for a while, so I'm really on that, enjoying the running. It's okay to run challenge that Andy's Man Club's got going on, so I'm getting out running most days. Another one that's a bit personal to home and also AMC is I've got an uncle who's fighting for his life in intensive care with COVID-19, and touch wood, and I'll find out straight after this podcast. But yesterday it looked like things were taking a turn for the better. So he's in intensive care, but he's starting to breathe on his own. So I'm hoping that things are going to just continue to pick up there. I'm really hopeful in that department. And we've also got one of our facilitators who's also fighting for his life in intensive care. The last I heard was a very similar story. He's going in the right direction, and I know that at any point it can change. But the positive right now is that they're both still fighting, and like in a mental health capacity, as long as you can keep fighting, you've still got hope, and that's what it's about. So.
Brilliant. Mark, positive from your week?
Yeah, I think the physical side of things is key. I'm probably fitter now than I have been over the last maybe 18 months to 2 years of retiring. I think it's something that I found more time to do. Wife's quite keen on home gym as well, so I probably feel a bit fitter than I have done. A lot of challenges going around on social media, so I've tried to keep up with them. And probably spending time with the kids more than I ever have, really. I think that is a massive positive, and sometimes it is testing and you don't see it that way, but then when you see, say, the middle one riding his bike around the garden without any stabilizers, you realise that there are like successes in it, and they may be small, but there's things to smile to, for sure.
Cool.
Absolutely. Thank you. So question 3 is the one that always gets people talking on Monday night. Have you got anything to get off your chest? Obviously, we've spoken quite a lot about stuff. We've got stuff off his chest over the last sort of 8, 9, 10 years between us, by it sounds of it. And I think mine for this week is I took a phone call from the country's youngest facilitator on. I can't remember what day it was. I've lost days completely this week, to be honest. But he's telling me he'd taken an overdose. Probably, arguably, the toughest phone call I've ever been on the receiving end of. Just try to keep him talking and get help to him and whatever else. So that's been a testing week, shall we say. But what I showed is the strength of Andy's Man Club, because I knew that. Got my wife's phone, got her on phone to somebody else while I was keeping him talking on phone, and other people involved. And I'm going to name him, actually. The lad who's been helping. I think he deserves a bit of credit. A lad called Daniel,
legend,
affectionately known in Huddersfield as Frodo, for his similarity to a certain character. But he's stepped up this week enormously. His family have took Dylan in, and Dylan's happy for me to say his name. They've took Dylan in this week and looked after him like one of theirs, and that makes me immensely proud and shows what AMC is all about. So my get off your chest is actually turned into a bit of a massive positive. So yeah, really happy about that. So Luke, over to you.
I've got to check the door 1 second.
I know Dylan's a magician, but he just made his guest disappear. Likes his magic. He mentioned his name and poof, his guest has disappeared. That's brilliant.
He's working in mysterious ways.
It's good, isn't it? It's real. That's what it's about. It's quality that Dylan's all right. Yeah, and I spoke to
talking about
the other day.
I'm back.
It's all right. It's so weird because Dylan's been on like a magic show for BBC for us and all sorts, and we mentioned his name and poof, he'd gone. It was like he'd just performed a magic trick. That's quality. To get off chest, obviously we're Andy's anniversary, and we always get together as a family and go out for a meal. We'll let balloons off at his grave. It's something we've done for years. It's his 4th anniversary, and we're looking forward to doing exactly the same this year. We couldn't do that. We went to grave still though on his 1 hour family walk, and we timed it that Andy's mum was still there at the time, and we wanted to like go within 2 meters, which were difficult, which is a bit annoying when people are out doing what they're doing and not respecting the guidelines, and we're bang on with that. So that were hard. The positive was the amount of stuff that came in, even facilitators saying how club saved the life and stuff like that. I just put a real positive spin on that day, and that were big. And another little offload, I'll get off your chest with it. It's been a touchy week with missus, with kids, and and all that pressure. But we've just communicated really well. I think we communicate probably the best we have in maybe 10 years of being together. This week we had a good chat yesterday, and things are really back on the up, and that's really good. And yeah, other than that, I think things are going to be all right out there. We've got a lot of shit going on in world, but how good is it that people can get together? The heroes at world, NHS are getting credit they deserve, and I just the last one for me is we don't talk politics, and I'm not going to talk politics. We'll talk about a human being.
I'll cut you off if you do.
Yeah, and he's the guy has clearly had some flaws, as we all have, and he's obviously got a lot of pros as well for being able to work as well. But Boris Johnson, and I don't want to single him out as a guy who's in intensive care, but I just think as a country we talk about, like after Caroline Flack, about being kind. That don't mean just the people you like. That don't mean that you get the right to choose who that be kind is to. If you've got not nice to say on social media, just keep it to yourself. Because I just think like there's a guy there fighting for his life, and at the end of the day, 4 years from now, 2 years from now, he might not be Prime Minister. He'll still be a dad. He'll still be another human being. He'll still shit just like we do and eat like we do. Albeit probably a lot better food than we get and access to a lot better toilets, but because he's loaded, isn't he? But you get the picture, don't you? And I just think, be kind. The shit I've seen going around, I just don't think it's right nice. And I don't care about what political party he's from or anything. I don't really care about politics. What I care about is these human beings at its root cause being the best version of themselves. And that means being the best version of the community. And that's what leaders are, like what Mark was saying earlier. Checking in with people and making sure each and every one of us is the best version of themselves.
Absolutely.
That would be a bit of a rant. What about you, Mark?
Well, so stuff to get off my chest. I thought I was pretty patient. I still think I am pretty patient, but it's definitely tested my patience this week. I feel that I'm usually quite good at having targets to hit and looking especially with having routine in my life since a young age. I found it difficult not having to get the work to go to, and that's not to say that I'm not enjoying being at home with the family and stuff like that, but it's probably the most testing time for me, having it forced upon on me, that trying to feel like a sense of achievement. I don't know whether that's wrong or right. I just feel that that's my sort of overriding feeling at the minute. I don't know if that's selfish. I find that sort of I'm not used to doing stuff at home consistently and then feeling like, what is the achievement? And I know that we've got through the kids doing stuff, and I feel great for that when I bring myself back down for feeling short-tempered. But it's been an eye-opener to me to feel like really what's important. I think, like I said, I have struggled when I feel like I should be doing something work-related. Maybe whether that's a sense of I feel like I'm letting people down. I don't know whether that, like, I should be doing something today related to work because it's important. But then what's really important is what I have in this house. So
yes,
and that's the wife and 3 kids. So I think that's trying to find that balance of, okay, yeah, I do feel like I should be doing something, but this is what's important right now. And that's definitely how I felt this week. It's probably the worst I felt. And it's great that I've been able to come on here and chat to you 3 and sort of share this as well, because I think it's been important this week.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, what you've said there leads us perfectly on to our question 4, which is, what have you learnt about yourself during this obviously strange period for not just us, but for everybody in the world, and why? You know, so I mean, what have I learnt about myself? I'm actually a lot more tolerant than I thought I was. I could be very sort of, I don't want to say judgmental, but maybe not give people the airtime that they probably deserved. And I think this has sort of shown me that I do and I can, and it's led me on to talking to people a lot more. Normally I'd just give my dad a quick ring, maybe a minute, or text him, or speak to my mum a minute on the phone, or I don't text my mum because she doesn't text back, she doesn't know how to use it. But just having FaceTimes with them and FaceTimes with friends that I would normally just drop a text and you're all right. So I think that's something that I'll take into the future world, whatever that may hold for us all. Obviously we don't know yet, do we? But yeah, so it's I've learned I'm more tolerant, and that's why. So Luke, what have you learnt about yourself during this, and why?
Just to paint a picture. So I run 4 businesses and have 1 charity. That's my days from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to bed, plus extra time even in bed, is just consumed. It's just completely and utterly consumed. And probably like Mark, from being 12, 13, 14, wanting to be a professional sports person, you're just constantly in the grind. Then you retire, and you find your next thing. It's always goals. And for the first time in my life, I've got nothing like to do. All businesses are closed down until the interim, until whenever that may be, indefinitely. And I've always thought that I couldn't stay at home. Like, I couldn't honestly tell you, either one of you, looking back for the last 5 years, when I spent more than 3 hours in a day in my house, I couldn't find it. It's always on the go, nip into a coffee shop, nip in there, getting that done. And I found that I've really enjoyed. I've been trying to find for a while. I've been focusing on like this idea of like this bigger idea, like what is it all about? You know, because usually both will set goals in your life, you'll achieve them, and you'll have thought, oh, is this it? And then it'll be next one and next one and next one. And I think what I've learned is that I don't always need, and this is what Mark got me thinking about it, and it's emphasised what I've been on about lately, is that I don't always need to be driven to something, because all the things that I'm driving towards are just to give more or be more for my family, and they maybe don't get that version of me anyway. So actually, when this all ends, working smarter and enjoying this time at home, and I think that's a big thing. It's enjoying the present. I think too much as a society, we're judged on our success by how busy we are, how active we are. And I find it myself on Instagram, Twitter, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. We're actually just being present. So if the answer to the question in a short version would be, I've learned that I need very little now that I thought to function. So when I go on back into the normal life, I will be taking that simplicity with me, and I think it'll actually probably improve me now as a speaker and as a businessman. What about Mark?
Yeah, what have I learned about myself this week? That it's the simple things, I think, in life that are probably what give you the most reward. I think, especially having 3 kids, and obviously this is only to people that have kids and will understand it, is that all they want is your attention.
Yep.
And when you're busy and you're working, you're like, yeah, give me 2 minutes, or yeah, I'll just do this, and I'll give you that time. 1 second, let me do this. I'm finishing this, and then when you don't have that to do, and then you give them the time, the attention that they want straight away, and obviously that's not possible every second of the day, but how much they benefit from it, and just the little things of like the little girl's climbing. She's not even 2 yet. She's climbing everything, and when she gets up to the top of something, she's done it on her own. She turns around and she just gives you a look to say, "Look, you've helped me do that," and it's just a smile, maybe, and a laugh. And I think just having that, instead of thinking, right, let me do this first, and then that moment's gone, but enjoying that little moment that there is.
Yes.
Yeah, I like it. Some cracking answers. And then question 5, always a bit of a quick fire round. What one thing will you take away as a positive and implement it after this sort of lockdown? Mine's pretty much repeating what I said in question 4, just to be a lot more tolerant and patient to people, and it's 100% what I'll take into the sort of aftermath of this, and talking to people a lot more via FaceTime and video calls rather than text. Because the text is, it's actually very lazy, and it's very lazy and almost dismissive. I've learned that. So it's better to have that sort of definite personal interaction. So I'll be taking that into it. Luke?
Our roots as human beings, we're animals, aren't we, who require shelter, food and love. And I think I've emphasised that those three things are the simple things, they are the big things. And that's all my focus will be when this is all done. The love will be more, like Mark just said, spending more time with kids and everything, before getting rid of that 1 minute. And I'm just doing this, it's for you guys, it's not, and they're like, I don't care if you're sending an email about work, I don't care if I can go on an extra holiday. It's about that simple stuff. I've spent more time at garden in the last 3 weeks than I probably have in 5 years of living here. But the one thing I'll take away is that 1 hour of exercise with the kids. We're going to walk every night now, the little woodlands walk around park. We'd have never done that usually. And the fact that they just love getting the bike out, doing a 10-minute walk, I'll take that in an hour, because that just simplifies it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, mine would be still how important it is to not bottle stuff up, even if it is just your family. Like with the wife, I think just being able to talk about something that you feel like maybe I'll do, like I mentioned before, about being frustrated and I don't feel like I'm achieving at work, and actually saying it out loud to her, and then starting a conversation maybe that's not related to the kids but more related to sort of each other, because as you understand, when you're with chasing 3 kids around, maybe you don't have that interaction, and you're sort of passing each other quite consistently, but actually spending maybe an hour a day having just a general conversation about like what is going on, like how do you feel and stuff like that, and not just bottling it up because you're at home. You think, oh, I'll just deal with it myself while I'm at home, but being able to have that, I think that helps the relationship, and I've got to continue that this week for sure.
Excellent. So just to round off, because obviously we've had question 5 there, we've probably gone a little bit serious for Andy's Man Club on that one, so I'll just chuck in another one, if you don't mind, a quickie. What were the last thing that made you laugh out loud? For me, watching clips of Vicky Flanagan, because he absolutely creases me. It just takes you back to being younger and when times were a bit more simple, and yeah, just a proper good bit of laughter. Was everybody good, done it? So Luke, what's last thing that made you laugh out loud?
Every time I see him on an interview with Tyson Fury's dad, he just absolutely cracks me up. The way he always refers to his son as Tyson Fury, both names, and it was the one recently. There's actually a lot of clips of him where he's funny as things, and he's not even trying to be funny, where he offers everyone out, but it's where he offered Dana White out, because Dana White said that his son won't better cope in MMA, and he said something like, "You tell Dana White, I'm 50-year-old, I'm the fittest man he'll ever meet, fittest 50-year-old he'll ever meet, and I'll slap Tyson Fury's name out of his mouth. So he wanted to fight me. And then it had a clip of him running, and he wasn't very fast at running. And it's the fact that he's called himself fittest 50-year-old on planet. I just find it absolutely unbelievable. So I just think, what a bloke.
Love it.
Mine would be, we've got like a game called the Giant Board Game, and it's basically laid across the floor, and it's got like 4 questions. It's got like a performance, it's got like a question and answer, it's got a random one, and it's got a challenge. And one of mine was to give everyone a piggyback at one time, and going through the ages and then giving your wife a piggyback, it was something, just burst out laughing. Yes.
That's brilliant.
To be fair, so they all enjoyed that. I found it quite funny.
I love that.
Love it. So I think that sort of brings us nicely to an end on that. I just think, obviously, Mark, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. It's been brilliant to hear your story from obviously being a young man getting into football and the captaincy and the first team coaching, and obviously the more personal side, which is obviously what Andy's Man Club's all about, really. But yeah, just thank you, and thanks to you and everybody at Huddersfield Town for everything that you've done for Andy's Man Club this season.
Definitely. It's been absolutely massive.
Thank you, and keep it up. All the good work that you're doing, it's amazing. and so important. So no, big thank you to you guys as well.
I think it'll be good to get Mark
think-
on for a part 2 once the lockdown's ended and he's back into grinding football, and we can look back at some of this stuff we all spoke about, and we can see where we're all at, and you know how football might change and life might change, and if stuff's still going on with family. I don't know if you'd be up for that, Mark, coming on.
Yeah, of course I would. Yeah. Anything I can do. Yeah, and it'll be interesting, like you said, to see where we are, and once the world starts to sort of get back to normality and see where everyone is at.
Here's a quick one for you both.
Sean, innit? It's okay to talk, innit?
Always.
Definitely. I've got a quick one for you. How long do you reckon this is going to last? I just love this. I love different people's, because I speak to some people and they go, "Oh, next week," and then some people are like, 5 years. And you're just like, where are you boys at?
I'm going to go for the hopeful 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Lockdown, you mean, or just generally the virus?
So, like, lockdown, but then obviously when they actually start to allow, okay, here's a good one. When do you think the next football will be kicked in a stadium properly? Because that will sum up, once they allow the sports ground open, that means that the world's open again, doesn't it? So when do you think that'll be? And I'm not about behind closed doors.
You mean like a full stadium?
Yes, proper game.
I can't see it being this side of September. Genuinely can't.
Well, I don't know.
Not with a full stadium.
No, I don't want to put a hopeful date on that. I just, sooner rather than later, I've got to say.
I think
Yeah.
no professional sport in 2020. That's a big shout, isn't it?
Wow, that's huge.
I wouldn't bet against that. I wouldn't bet against that. The priority is that people that we get through this and more people survive than don't, and
Yeah, I think
we'll
so.
worry about all the other stuff that's around the edge afterwards.
That prediction has just left Mark feeling a lot worse after this podcast. He's like, oh my God, what's going on?
Yeah, please God, no. Your youngest will be 7.
Go play Tyson Fury's dad's on YouTube, and that will cheer everyone up. Trust me.
Absolutely. But yeah, that's been brilliant, gents.
Absolute pleasure.
Cheers, thank you.
If we all just do a little check out, it's okay to talk.
It's okay to talk.